Okay, so now we're going to talk about the spinal cord, the anatomy of the spinal cord. And the cord actually, of course, runs up and down your back, right? It goes from the rostral point, the top point here where it connects in with the brainstem, and extends all the way down to the tail or caudal end. And it consists of both gray matter, that is, neuron cell bodies and the synaptic connections that they make, the sort of information processing regions, and that's found pretty much centrally in a central sort of core that extends all the way down. And then surrounding that is significant amounts of white matter, literally the wires, the cables that are carrying sensory information north or rostrally towards maps in the cerebrum, and also carrying motor information. A lot of it, of course, generated from the planning regions in the frontal lobe, and then sent out via the precentral gyrus or the motor strip, heading all the way down into areas of the cord, and then ultimately motor neurons will extend from the cord and head out to move various muscle groups in the periphery. So the cord, in terms of spinal cord anatomy, if we start at the the top portion here, we have 31 pairs of what we call spinal nerves. These are projections. They come off the left and the right, and they are going to go, both carry motor commands out to various segmental areas of the, of the body, and also carry sensory information in. And these 31 pairs of spinal nerves can be divided into specific, groups. So starting from the most rostral extent, we have 8 pairs, right, left and right, of what we call the cervical spinal nerves, starting with C1 and extending down to C8. And then we have 12 what we call thoracic pairs of spinal nerves, T1 through T12. And then we have 5 of the lumbar spinal nerves, L1 through L5. And then finally we have the sacral nerves. There are 5 of these as well, emanating from the left and the right. So 5 pairs of sacral nerves known as S1 through S5. At the very bottom, the 31st, nerve is something called the coccygeal nerve, and it serves the coccyx, which is the old, the vestigial tail, right, your tailbone. And you'll note that there are a number of enlargements that you can see in 2 sort of distinct areas of the cord. There's sort of a cervical enlargement where it sort of bulges out, and then there's this sort of lumbar/sacral enlargement. This actually represents a great deal more gray matter processing at those 2 locations. And think about why. I mean, what sort of structures are being both moved with motor commands extending out along those nerves, and also where is there a great deal more sensory information coming in, at the level of the cervical enlargement and also the lumbar sacral enlargement. Now, the other key thing to know about spinal nerve anatomy is each of these, spinal nerves consists again of a motor component. That's an efferent component. That's the motor output to muscles, etc., in the body, and also a somatosensory component like pain, pressure, touch, proprioception. All these different sensations that are coming in to the spinal cord and then heading up. Rostrally towards maps of the body and the brain. So if you look in close to, let me see if I can get this here, to a single, spinal nerve, what we're looking at here is, you can see the tips of your vertebrae, right, over here lower down, right, that you could feel if you put your hand along your back. So we're looking at what we call the dorsal surface right here, right? This is the back surface. And you should note that with one of these spinal nerves, there's this kind of root. You see all these little projections coming in here? From the dorsal end, and then there's also another root that's kind of at the front portion, which would be your ventral end, right? This is the front, the ventral. The dorsal would be the back, and the dorsal root has a bulge on it. It has a weird little bulge. Let's see if I can find it here. It's right here, and that bulge represents the cell bodies of the sensory neurons, right? That are carrying information about pain and temperature, itch. Also touch, proprioception, vibration, pressure, all the different aspects of sensory function of the body are being carried in, along the dorsal root of the spinal nerve, and the cell bodies of those cells are actually located in a ganglion. So they're located in the peripheral nervous system. So you think about the cells that are carrying somatosensory information in. They actually have very long processes that go all the way out, for example, to the tips of your fingers, right? And then, something out here is stimulated that sets off an action potential and starts sending it back along that long process, that portion of the nerve, and then it meets its cell body in the dorsal root ganglion, okay? Like in the periphery along the dorsal root of the spinal nerve. And then, post soma, after the cell body, there's another process that extends inside the spinal cord and, can make connections with cells in the spinal cord or continue on up, towards the brainstem. Well, that long process out here, is effectively, functionally a dendrite. I mean, it's a really long dendrite. And then the cell body, is the soma located in the dorsal root ganglion, that collection of neuron cell bodies that are found in the peripheral nervous system at the dorsal root of the spinal nerve. And then the process that's post-soma that's heading in is really technically the axon. So what I want you to know is that these spinal nerves, actually, there are 31 pairs of them. They're divided into the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and then there's the coccygeal nerve at the bottom. But each of those nerves on the left and the right consists of two roots, right? A dorsal root with a dorsal root ganglion, the cell bodies of the sensory neurons that are carrying the sensory information into the cord and into the central nervous system, and also a ventral root coming out, from the front, that's carrying motor commands out to move muscles in the body.